Hello and welcome back to another episode of In the Chair with Bear. I'm your host, Anthony Bear. Today's episode was actually recorded quite a while ago and I never got around to posting it. It's with an amazing guy, Tanner Martty, about living your ancestral life. He has a program called The Ancestral Man, all about using the things that you love the most to fuel your practice and health and vitality. This podcast is a passion project for me, and I am going on a journey to learn about living our more wild self, rewilding, finding our connection with nature. I plan on talking to a lot of interesting people, so if you guys know anybody out there who wants to be on the podcast, just let me know. I am very interested in people that are living close to nature and how they're doing it and why they're doing it and what's inspiring them. So check this one out. I'm very excited to have Tanner on the show, and take it away. Here with Tanner Martty. Thanks so much for being here, man, and jumping on such short notice. You are really freaking cool, dude. I was checking out your Instagram and everything you're doing, and it is really inspiring. And I was kind of feeling like, can you tell us a little bit about, you have this it's the Ancestral Man project, right? It being the ancestral, like living ancestrally.
Yeah.
How did you come upon that?
Well, first off, thanks for having me. Appreciate the invitation. Great to have a conversation. I love talking about this subject with people that are interested, and people that are interested in doing this through like kind of a modern paradigm. And I'll explain what I mean by that kind of as I get into what it is that I'm into. So Ancestral Modern Man is my Instagram handle, but the program that I created and do with people is called the Ancestral Reset. And really what it's all about is just integrating ancestral living principles into modern life in a practical way so that we can experience the benefits of what happens when we live congruently with our evolutionary biology. And it started for me because, well, I guess it really started as just a kid that liked to go outside and play a lot, and became a lover of physical culture. And
I like that.
I say that because like I liked sports and played sports and things like that growing up. But for me, it was really just about like I was stoked on just playing and being outside.
Yeah.
And
You're like, how can
my
I
dad,
make a life just playing and being outside all the time?
it eventually came to that. Yes, it eventually came to that. But, part of it was also my dad was really into training. And so like some of my earliest memories are being like in the backyard with him while he's doing pull-ups. And I'm like, playing with a ball or whatever. Or, when it was cold, there was a period of time we lived a little further up north in Virginia, and it would snow. And my dad would be running in the garage watching old LSU basketball games. And I would be like, playing on this little hoop we had in the basement, and just like and so it was just really about like moving and enjoying moving and being fit. And my dad kind of instilled this appreciation for like caring for your body and becoming the best person you could be through kind of physical discipline, and kind of pushing yourself through training or whatever kind of recreation or sport you were into. And that certainly stuck with me.
I love that. One of the things that like when I was looking through your stuff, and it's one of my theories, is that really health is the natural state. Like we sort of push ourselves away from health by kind of getting out of alignment with nature, right? But the natural state is just to be healthy, to breathe the fresh air, to drink the fresh water, eat the fresh food. It is, nature's sort of automatically healthy.
It's very well said. And I think that that is something that's a really powerful thing for someone to accept and start believing and having faith in, because I think there are a lot of people that feel like the natural tendency is some type of deterioration and a state of kind of, dis-ease, or, or some type of like falling apart, or not. It's almost like not feeling healthy and energetic has become the common state of things. And so I think people feel like they're almost fighting to be healthy and to feel energetic and to feel awesome. And really that's not the case. The body tends towards thriving. It's essentially programmed into us down at like the genetic level. And so really a lot of what we need to do to be healthy is to actually in some ways do less and remove some things through our life. Like really
Right.
addition by subtraction is the most
Right.
powerful thing that someone could do. And I say this not as just an opinion. This is what I've seen working with clients over the last, 15 years, and just seeing people come to me and say like, I just, I've been overweight for so long, and I've been it's terms like I've been fighting with my weight. I've been battling with my energy. I've
Right.
been
Right.
battling, it's like, it's all this very kind of, it's like they're in conflict with their body. And that's not really the way things are. What people are in conflict with is modern living that's taking them out of living congruently with, with their body and with nature. And it's, and so if I hope by people appreciating that and acknowledging that it actually drops some of the barriers to entry to actually addressing their health.
I know. I love your approach to it, because a couple of things that really resonate with me are things like, why are we counting our calories? Like, that's stupid. Or why are we, going into an enclosed environment in a gym and doing this repetitive motion that we would never actually do in nature? Like, why are we doing that? And this idea that if you're just out enjoying yourself, like I love playing with my kids. It's like one of my favorite things to do. Just go and rage it with my kids out in the yard or whatever. And that, I mean, I get such a workout, plus you're like using all these different muscle groups that you're just running around playing and having fun. I mean, climbing a tree, whatever. It's always kind of, I have always had this thing of like, I should go to the gym, but then I don't really like the gym. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I'd rather be out like in a river or something.
And there's so many additional benefits to the kind of thing you're talking about, like going outside and playing with your kids in the yard. Number one, there's the connection that you're having with your children, which is something that, can't be measured or quantified. So there's that. But then there's also just the physical contact with nature. I mean, there's a lot of research that shows that, there is a healing effect and a balancing effect and an anti-inflammatory effect that humans get from like physical skin contact with nature. Then there's all the research on the Schumann resonance, which is this resonance that the earth emits that actually like calms us and brings us back into balance. And then there's also all the bacteria and things that, populate your microbiome as a result of being outside. And so these aren't even things that you need to think about like adding to the checklist of things to do if you just go outside and play and have a good time and hang out with your kids or play with your buddies,
That's really, really cool. I'm a hobby herbalist, and I started an herbal company. One of the things I did, and so I have this company, Bear Blend, where we sell herbal blends and stuff. But years ago, when I was really getting into herbs, I was a hardcore naturalist. I lived in a teepee. I ate off the land. I learned how to forage for wild food, all that stuff, and I became really good at like identifying plants. I still do it all the time. People look at me like I'm nuts, but I'll just walk around and pick random stuff and eat it. But I had this herbal teacher one time who said something really cool to me. He's like, you don't even need to eat the herbs or take them in a tea. Like, all you need to do is just walk around in the woods with in your shorts, and just them rubbing up against your legs, you're actually absorbing nutrients. And I was like, are you serious? It's like, yeah, all you have to do is just walk around.
Yeah, just spend time in nature. Like a lot of it doesn't need
Yeah.
to be so structured. You know,
Yeah.
back to that point, the two things I've seen people struggle with the most in 15 years of working with people, and just to give the listeners a little background, I was a trainer, did one-on-one training, group training, and owned gyms for almost 15 years in Santa Monica, California, and then because of COVID, that the brick and mortar gym business was tough if you were living in Los Angeles County, and so I pivoted to doing online stuff, and that's when I started sharing more on Instagram and social media and everything. But so I am not like some influencer that had some ideas and started sharing them. It's like I was working with people, working with hundreds of people at my gyms and coming into contact with where I kind of, formed what I was doing and my ideas and trial and error, and then started, sharing online. And, and so the two things that I've seen people struggle with the most in, in their kind of fitness or wellness journey is the first thing is embracing discomfort. So doing things that are uncomfortable, that's the first thing. But then the other thing that people struggle with the most is embracing things that they love and enjoy. And, so people that love to do certain things, whether it's forage or play with their kids outside or surf or play tennis or whatever, there's this idea that's been built up that if it's not some type of structured program in a gym, that it's not as valuable. So people struggle to build the foundation of their wellness routine around the things that they already enjoy. And instead, what they do is the things that they enjoy become subservient to the things that they feel like they have to do. And that's
Oh
kind of a
man,
misguided approach.
yeah, I think that's a misguided approach to life in general too. I
Yeah.
was just having this conversation today where I was like, this has been something I was meditating on today is we make approximately 35,000 choices a day. Uh, all these little things that we decide to do. And if we sort of align with what we really want in those choices, our life would just change. But most of the time, and I'm just as guilty as anybody else, I do all these things I feel like I have to do, even though I don't really want to do them. And I sort of procrastinate the things I want to do. I'll be like, well, I'll get to that after I do all the things I have to do. Then I'll go do the things I want to do.
Yeah.
And then we just sort of end up procrastinating all the things we want to do for most of our life, which basically many of us do that.
And then
So
think about the associated regret and negativity and cynicism and things that that cultivates as a result of doing that. So it's not that you just missed out; it's also the bitterness that becomes the burden as a result of those choices that you make.
And then it becomes like a background track, like a white noise background track in your mind, like, oh, well, I'll never be able to do that, or I could never be that good at doing any of that stuff. And, and it's why I love doing this, because I meet so many people that, even in their 40s or something, they were like, yeah, I was a big fat slob. And now I'm just like healthier than I've ever been in my 50s. It's like, it doesn't really matter how old you are. You can literally make the change and start deciding. And I love that your program isn't like pushing against your nature. It's like going with what feels good to you.
It's like the yin and yang. There's a balance. I think for people that are struggling to get going, really leaning into embracing the joy, the things you enjoy is the way to go. Now there is an equal amount of like embracing discomfort, and those are the things that you have to do, but
like a cardio, like a little cardio.
Yeah, or like, for
something,
example, like one of the most powerful and simple things that you can leverage is cold immersion. So, a cold plunge, a cold shower every morning, or even just putting your face in cold water because it stimulates the mammalian dive reflex, and there's all these like positive benefits of that. Okay, and it is uncomfortable. All right, I've been doing it for
how long
years.
do you need to do it
Like what's a good time, like, because I'm just asking because this is a total selfish question, but
Yeah, you
I
want to know
live
how long you got to do it?
well, because I live in San Diego, and I swear, like, I'll put on my cold shower, and it just doesn't stay cold long enough. Like, it'll only stay cold for like 30 seconds, and then it starts warming up, and I'm like, dang, I just like a little more.
Yeah, so the tough thing about if you live in a warm climate, the shower isn't going to get it done for certain months of the year,
You need the plunge, yeah.
But the good thing is, I mean, you got the Pacific Ocean, which is plenty cold most of the time.
I should just jump in there. Yeah,
dude, that's actually. So I've been doing cold immersion for a really long time. Some of it is unintentionally. When I was in high school, is actually when it started. I used to get up early in the morning, and I would actually break into our high school gymnasium so I could shoot hoops and practice basketball before school. And then I would take a shower before school started, but the hot water heaters were on a timer, so the hot water wouldn't turn on until the first school bell rang. So I was like taking cold showers every morning before school, just because it was the only option I had. And I remember how I would just be like buzzing during like my first couple periods of the day. Like, wow, it was like this crazy feeling I had. So I actually kind of started getting hooked on cold showers before it was even a part of the zeitgeist. It was just like this thing where I was like, man, when I take these cold showers, I feel amazing. And then years later, guys like Wim Hof and people start bringing attention to it. And then, which is great because then there's like all this science around it now and people understand that a little bit more. So to answer your question, how much you need to experience benefits is all relative to how much you are adapted to. So if someone is doing no cold exposure right now, starting with 30 seconds of a cold shower every single day is going to have benefits, and not only benefits that they feel that are palpable, but also metabolic benefits that, aren't, actually experienced or felt in the moment, but that you would eventually start seeing. But just like anything, your body starts becoming adapted. So over time, you either have to increase the duration of the time that you're submerging yourself in cold, or you have to increase the intensity, which means colder, or both. Now, to give you like an actual number, in the beginning, if you start with 30-second showers, great, then try to extend it to a minute. But there's actually been some research that was done that showed that 11 minutes of cold immersion is kind of like this sweet spot to optimize benefits for the time spent doing it. So it's kind of like the ideal intersection of like, I don't want to do this more than I have to, but I want to maximize the benefit. It seems like, according to this research, 11 minutes is kind of the sweet spot. Now,
I think I saw a video of you getting in this big like metal submersion tub.
Yeah.
Where do I get one of those things, man?
Yeah, so the easiest way to set yourself up with an incredible ancestral setup at your house is just to go to like the nearest farm supply stores.
You got it at a farm supply.
Yeah,
That's
it's just
cool.
it's a horse trough is all it is, and
Nice.
and it's like so it was like 100 and it's like maybe $80, and then I spent like another 20 because I'm in Idaho now. And so I spent another $20 on this thing that keeps the water from freezing. And it's also made for horses and cattle so that like the water supply doesn't freeze,
like a heat
and then they
element
get
or
dehydrated.
something.
Yeah, so it heats it just enough to keep it from freezing, and that's it. So that's like the super cheap DIY Idaho cold tub.
I love it.
If you're in Southern California, it's not quite cold enough outside, so you need a
You're
cooling
gonna have to
element.
ice it. I'm gonna have to ice it.
Yeah, so there are these
interesting.
great do-it-yourself versions, and actually there's all these things that people do with like meat freezer chests, and there's all these like Facebook groups and YouTubes on how you can convert an ice freezer into a really high level cold tub for like less than like $800. Or
Interesting.
if you don't want to do that, you can buy like a $4,000 one. But if you're willing to take on a little weekend project, you can get set up with a really dialed in cold tub for $5, $6, maybe $900 if you want to finish it with wood and make it look nice.
Wow. That's awesome, man. So like some of the keys, it seems like it's some of the stuff I tell my kids all the time. Like, what do you need more than anything else? I always say to them, and it's oxygen. And then what's the second most important thing you need is water. And I notice like those are kind of the first sort of things you go into in some of your program, right? I mean, like drinking water, like a certain amount of water every day, ice cold water in the morning. A lot of people are dehydrated, huh? I mean, that's just like a big thing right there. Just
Yeah.
people not drinking enough water.
At the cellular level, people are dehydrated because of two things. They're not drinking enough water, and B, they're not getting enough minerals and electrolytes to actually retain that water in the proper way. So you may have some people that are, technically drinking enough water, but they're not getting enough minerals because their diet is so nutrient deficient or because they're scared of salt. And so they're literally dehydrated at the cellular level, which creates a whole cascade of problems that one might experience as, poor mental or physical performance, down to, cramping and tissue injuries, to issues with metabolic function. I mean, if you're dehydrated, man, it's essentially an endless potential for symptomization,
Everything going wrong.
Yeah. But what you just said is very intuitive. Like, really, the principles that I'm sharing with people are fairly simple. It's not like complicated stuff. It's learning how to breathe properly, and then being mindful about doing it when you're engaged in certain activities, because it's an opportunity to practice. And then when you practice, it starts to become something that's the normal way of doing things. And then, being conscious of being hydrated, exposing yourself to nature. And what comes with that is also some temperature extremes. There's a lot of benefits to doing that. And then kind of coming full circle to how we got into the cold tub conversation was, if you build a foundation of wellness with things that you really enjoy, and then you are strategic about adding some things that you don't enjoy but that are good for you, like immersion in cold water, you can pretty quickly start to experience like what most people would consider almost like kind of supernatural health, but to your point is really just the way that humans have evolved to thrive, and
right. It's almost like you're just getting out of your own way to just be how you're supposed to be. I mean, and a lot of it's really interesting because a lot of self-help gurus and stuff like Tony Robbins would be like, yeah, well, once you get really tuned into your body, your physiology, you will recognize when you're having thoughts and things going on that it's not good for you. Like, you'll know it. Your body will automatically do these things where it shuts down. You'll feel you're contracting, all those things. And so if you pay attention to what thoughts am I thinking that's making my body do that, and how can I, change my physiology, then a lot of things can start to change. Your emotions, start to change. And then, obviously having a good positive emotion is really in your quality of life, because most people, if you're going around and you're grumpy all the time, you're just going to have a shitty time, It's like, just, it's not necessarily about being happy all the time, but recognizing what we're alive on planet Earth. Like, it's pretty freaking cool. There's a lot to be grateful for every moment. And when you feel gratitude, you feel those emotions, your physiology changes, And so, and that's, I feel like it's all kind of goes together, right? I mean, I'm sure you experience and probably have some stories of people that, as they went through your program, didn't only experience like, yeah, I'm losing weight, but emotional, life transformational stuff. Like, hey, what am I doing with my life? I want to do this stuff now. I want to create this in my life. This is really the path I want to be on. I'm sure you experience that, just taking people through a physical program that ends up being, mental, spiritual, emotional, and all the above.
Well, certainly if it's going to be a program that's effective and sustainable, it really has to tie in those things. It can't just be like, you can't really cleave physical training from the mental and spiritual experience. I guess you could try, but it's not going to actually come together if you try to do that. These
And it
things
probably
don't.
won't last. It won't turn into a practice.
No, and that's the thing. It
yeah.
really won't. It really won't, because eventually the motivation to have a six pack for spring break or summer or whatever it is, or to get over the breakup. The best working out you're ever going to do is after a breakup. That's like the hardest you'll ever train, but eventually that wears off too. And
You get a girlfriend, then you get lazy.
yeah, totally.
And
then but but sorry. But the thing is, this is for it to be something that's sustainable, that also is dialed into the whole organism. It has to really, have a mental and emotional component that are connected with the body. So it's not really like mind, body, and spirit. It's like mind, body, spirit, and they're really all together. And so if you're going to address one, you are having to approach the others. So it's something that, if people are open to, then, you're going to do it whether you want to or not. It's just, how open are you to intentionally approaching the mental and spiritual side of the.
It'll happen. It'll come out. I think it's good to try to couple a work, like a program, that's very physical, with one that's like where you're journaling, or you're, because you'll experience, in my experience, you'll hit some things that are like blockages almost in your body that are like pain points or something, and then you'll be like, well, what is this? And if you work through it, you'll actually realize that that's some emotional trauma thing or something that you've been holding on to. Like,
absolutely,
the stuff does embed in our tissues, and like it turns into dense energy. I feel like that, and that's sort of what acupuncture does, unleashes that, opens that up. And so I think
what you just described is not only well documented in different verticals and different disciplines of science, but also something that is kind of a universal experience to people that are paying attention. Like, anyone that's listening, even if you haven't been kind of switched on to intentionally, kind of going inward, if you've ever had a really intense massage, like really intense body work, for example, and they start working on like your shoulder or your psoas, and like you feel like this flood of emotion, whether it be like anger, jealousy, laughter, all these different experiences. Like, if you've ever had really deep work and someone gets into releasing these emotional traumas and emotional experiences, they get trapped in the tissue, and you start re-experiencing these things. And it's like, why do I feel this intense jealousy right now, or this like shame right now? Like, I'm getting a massage on my leg, like, that's interesting, but it's certainly stuff that gets trapped in there. So it is something that you will be confronted with at some point,
yeah,
either way. So,
or not, or you'll just deny it your whole life, and then.
But ultimately, yes. But ultimately, if you do that, you will eventually deal with the repercussions of not addressing it, which is then having to address it. So the choice that we all have is, we can intentionally walk towards it and approach it and work with it and integrate it, or we can try to distract and sedate ourselves and avoid it. But ultimately, we will have to deal with it, because it'll become back pain, knee pain, these relationship issues, emotional issues, these blockages. I think you said that earlier, these blockages in life, whether it's career, relationship, physical health, it happens if we're not intentional about it. And so, where I think where physical training really shifted for me was when it became the gateway for an internal experience of knowing myself and working with myself, more than like, I'm doing this for a sport I'm trying to prepare for, or because I'm trying to be more attractive for, this girl I'm trying to attract or something like that. But when it became this thing that's like, this is actually a really powerful way for me to work with myself and extract the version of myself, the potential for myself that I know is there, but that like I'm being held back from right now by some things that like I need to work through.
We all have it, like we all have that stuff. And no matter how far we get, I feel like in life, no matter how successful you might look at someone, everybody's still working through some of those issues, man. I mean, that's part of life, and that's part of the journey that we're on together. And it's awesome that you found something you're really passionate about and a pathway for you to, what you're describing is like turning your sort of purpose into almost like a spiritual practice. It's just a practice, like of growing as a person and like really just becoming the better version of you every time you can,
I like that word, practice.
Yeah. Because and then it always turns into something better, right? Like you made those videos, and I'm sure you're in a really high state of mind when you made some of those videos that went viral for you, and like that energy turned into, it was like seeds you planted that did turn into something bigger, and that's awesome. I mean, that's like, that's what it's about.
Absolutely. And, sometimes it turns into cool relationships. You and I wouldn't meet and be doing this if it wasn't for that. It's relationships with clients. And, through those relationships, that's also a way that we learn a lot. And, I've worked with clients of all different ages, levels of success and everything. And I can tell you in my observation, we're all going through the same human experience, regardless of how successful or, whether it be financially, fame, whatever it is, like, we're all going through the same experience. And the gateways for all of us are these different practices. And it's one of the things I emphasize when I'm working with people and in my program is that like everything that we're doing with this is a practice. So like your nutrition regimen is a practice, and it's not just like the foods you eat, but it's like, are you prepared? Do you have the right things? Are you actually mindful about when you sit down and eat, or are you just inhaling it while you're still like working? And, it's like, so, nutrition is a practice that's multifaceted. Your training is a practice that's multifaceted. Your, daily kind of circadian routine about waking, working, moving, and sleeping is a practice. Your relationships are a practice. And there's not an end point when you've like reached enlightenment or, reached the end. That's not what it is. It's this journey that you're just kind of constantly working with, constantly practicing. And if people can embrace that rather than being so focused on getting to a result, the irony is that journey. They will get to the result. But the fitness industry in particular is so, the way that it's marketed is so counterproductive to the client, to the customer, because, the before and after and the like, get shredded in 30 days, these like all these like 21 day this, 7 day that, like obviously programs need to have a duration. They can't be, someone can't be selling a lifetime membership to something. So, there are obviously certain things that we have to do to create a service that someone can wrap their head around. But do you see what I'm saying? Like with the presentation is all about the result.
It does. It creates a sort of visual and also a sort of expectation for people that they're like, well, this is what I'm buying. I'm buying the result. You know what I mean? Like I'm putting my money towards the result. And you're like, that's not what you're buying. You're not buying that. You're buying a practice that becomes your life. Like it's not just in 21 days you're done and then you can go back to eating pizza and like doing whatever. Now it's like
we live in a process, not in a result. And when people can embrace that, not only do they enjoy the process more, but they actually tend to achieve the things that they envisioned and set out for. There's a program I became aware of when I first moved here, because there was a lot of people in the neighborhood I moved into that were doing it. I think it's called 75 Hard or something like that. Are you familiar with what this program is?
No.
I'm not really either, but I think it's 75 days of doing certain things and everything like that. It's like, working on a certain amount of time, doing some other things and everything like that. But the emphasis of the program, as far as I can tell, is that we're going to like really do this extreme thing for 75 days. And what's interesting is a bunch of my neighbors that I kind of met and like talking when they found out I was in fitness, they were all asking me if I knew about this program and kind of what my opinion was. And, my response is always like, no, I don't, but why don't you tell me about it? And like, I'm curious what your experience has been. And what was funny was how they were all kind of universally like, yeah, like, we've done it a few times now, and like we get in really good shape during the 75 days, but then like we kind of just fall off the bandwagon. So I feel like it's the kind of thing that like I need to do a couple times a year, and I can kind of, balance it with the times that I'm not doing anything. And I'm like, and I'm not saying that the program is bad. I don't know enough about it to make that judgment or not. I don't know. But what I'm saying is it's the mentality of like, I want to do this program, but I don't necessarily want to integrate the change within myself.
Yeah.
So it's a very external experience.
Well, and it's something you impose on yourself. It just becomes another one of those things that you have to do again. It's like, well, I'm getting that result, so I have to do this. And it becomes that, as opposed to, your approach where you're saying, hey, enjoy yourself. Like, it should be something you enjoy, and mixed with things that maybe are hard, that you're challenging yourself. But ultimately in that challenge, you feel joy after it. Like, you feel like, this kind of, you're doing it now, not because you have a trainer telling you, okay, get to work, and or because your wife's going, you're fat, you got to deal with it, or whatever. You're doing it because it's actually bringing you energy and joy, and helping to transform your life towards something that you really want. And that's, that's a challenge. It's really just the desire to improve yourself, and knowing that that's even possible. I think a lot of times people don't even realize that it's possible, or they hold themselves, in where they're at, because they're like, oh, well, this is all I can ever do. This is all I'm capable of. This is all I can create, and I'm fine. Things are fine, and it's sort of, you keep yourself in that holding pattern. But it's almost like just deciding, you know what, I could have an amazing life if I want. Like, I could just be freaking amazing. Like, why not? Look at these other people that do it,
I think the subtext of someone saying it's fine is like, it's not great, but it's tolerable.
Right. Like, I'm not in the spectrum. I'm not like, horrible. I don't have cancer yet,
yeah, like I'm surviving, but I'm not content. I'm not happy. And there's a gap. So it certainly implies that there's a gap. And people, when you say something that implies that there's a gap, there's also the implication of the awareness of the gap. So it's kind of like, the happy, kind of the happy idiot that doesn't know any better is content. Well, someone that does know better is fine.
Right.
They know better. And so these are ways that you can actually know and work with yourself, so that you don't have to settle for what's fine, that you can actually, overcome these things, and do it by going inward and working with yourself. And certainly, training, and you learn as much from the things you don't want to do as also embracing the things you do want to do. Like, when something gives you joy, like being able to actually allow yourself to do that and to lean into it is a powerful thing. And people struggle with that. And then people struggle to do the hard things as well. It's like people seem to be more comfortable just kind of existing in this tolerable middle,
Right. Just like, it's just enough. Everything's fine. And it's just like, just keep it this way. I want to go back to that idea of playing, because we sort of let go as we grow up, in this stupid reality that we all created for each other. We sort of let go of the child in us and being playful. And there's all this research now around not only is a sort of a playful attitude really healthy for you, but it actually makes you smarter. So like when you're in a playful energy, you actually learn better and your brain becomes more flexible. You can pick up things faster. You have more comprehension, and it's it seems so, I don't know if that's counterintuitive, but we push away the play, we push away the dreams. I mean, it's just a thing that we were told when we were kids.
I mean, a lot of it, I don't know if we need to go too down the rabbit hole on it, but like, look at the way that school is conducted. You're putting 6-year-olds and, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds sitting in a desk for, 8 hours a day. And, that's not what a 6-year-old should be doing. Like, they should be playing more. And
I mean, that's not what anybody should.
That's not what anybody should be doing.
That's
not what anybody should be doing. And if we actually get back to the roots of play, in all animals, especially we're talking about mammals here, the purpose of play is to teach life skills for surviving and thriving. So, most play is related to hunting, foraging, hiding, and defending yourself. Like, it's all these things that, like, our ancestors 10,000 years ago, like, it is ultimately these like survival skills, right? And then as humans got more advanced, they started coming up with more organized play that was more directed on things like, group hunts. And, like some of the most interesting play is the things that the different like expert horse cultures would do with their children. I'm thinking specifically of like the Mongols and the Plains Indians that, were like big time like horseman cultures, and the different games that they developed to teach children horsemanship that ultimately was what they used in battle and in hunting. And it was all very brilliantly crafted and progressed to create like master horsemen. And so anyway, so the play is something that is meant to teach and build skill, confidence, community, all these things that are super important. And then we strip that away and we start trying to learn and develop and become the best version of ourselves without playfulness. But that's completely against how things work in nature. Like there is no, like, you don't see chimpanzees and lions like sitting lined up in rows, like, learning how to hunt from some PowerPoint presentation. It's a playful experience. And
Right.
So
and dreams too. I feel like another thing. I mean, like where we just it's like that idea that, oh, I can be better. Oh, like I can do this great crazy thing, and like, we're told no, don't even, you can't do it, or whatever. And so we put that away too. And those are I feel like those are two of the most important things to get people into, wanting to change or wanting to, start playing again, start dreaming again.
Now, the next step of the conversation becomes that people will say that, well, all right, I have a mortgage and a family and I have bills to pay and I have this job as an accountant where I'm sitting in a cubicle working in front of a computer. And like, that's easy for you to say, like, go outside, more play and stuff like that. But I have a job and I have stuff like that. It's like, well, yeah, man, I have a job. Everyone has a job. Everyone has families and bills to pay and stuff like that. And where I think a lot of the ancestral industry, if you want to call it that, like the messaging has kind of missed the mark, is that it's these people that have taken on the role of characters that are using the character to drive more attention and more of a following. But as a result, part of the message is lost because it sends the message to people that there needs to be this very extreme, lifestyle
like Liver
shift.
King or something.
Yeah, like the Liver King is a great example. It's like, it's like you don't have to walk around with your shirt off all the time, never wearing shoes, only pooping outside in the woods, not using toilet paper, and like all these things that like he made up that like he didn't even do to experience the
Yeah.
benefits. Like, I live in a house, I use internet and a computer. Like, there are things about technology, modern technology, that can actually help us live more ancestrally depending on how we wield it. So there
Yeah.
just is there are frameworks that
Yeah.
can allow you to integrate these things without having to like quit your job and go live in the woods. Like, you can do it
Right.
living in a modern world. So the thing that can be frustrating for someone like me who's trying to share this in a practical way is all these kind of characters that are making it something that's kind of like a circus. And then ultimately that turns people off because people are like, well, that's stupid. I can't do that. I have this big corporate job that's important. And it's like, well, no, you can still do it. There's certainly a practical way to integrate these
Like
things.
yeah. And I think I go back to that. And this was for some reason today's like theme for me was that we have all these choices we make every day. Like somebody said there's around 35,000 choices you make in a day. And all we're saying is like maybe 10 of those to start with, like just 10 of the choices in your day, try to add a little play, try to add a little dream, like you have a conference call, go for a walk on your call. Like, how simple is that? To maybe if you're able to and you're out in some grassy yard, take your shoes off and walk around the grass while you're on your call. Simple ways to connect with nature, simple ways to just be a little bit outside the box, just open it a little bit, change it up a little bit. And that's maybe a little bit easier for people to digest, right?
Yeah, the things that you just said are actually wielding or leveraging modern technology to allow you to live more ancestrally than your parents did. Like, my dad couldn't take, early in his career, couldn't take phone calls while he was walking around outside on the trail, but now you can. It's super easy. It's super easy to do. I talk to clients all the time while I'm walking my dog or on a trail walk or something like that, or sometimes I'll get a sled and just be dragging the sled in this field near my house and just do like 30 minutes of calls and just keep pulling the sled while I'm talking. And actually, I find that I think better. I'm more clear when I'm moving around a little bit than when I'm like, stuck in this chair at a desk.
Yeah. And playing with your kids and all these great things. I mean, so I there's so much that is in your work. I've kind of only unpacked a little bit of it and read through part of it. But I'm really inspired by the work you're doing, man. And I love that you're out there doing it. And I love that you're kind of taming down that circus of craziness that's out there, because it does sort of fanaticize. I mean, we're in that culture right now where people are just going after likes and comments and stuff, and people get extreme just to like get attention. You know what I mean? But it's really cool that you're the message that you're putting out there and the work you're doing. So I just really appreciate you and thanks for being on here, man. And maybe you could, like, if you had some parting words for people, like a few things. We've mentioned a lot of things, the cold therapy, maybe a couple more things people could do to like start to transform their life in a little way.
Yeah, let's give people some practical nuggets. Like we've kind of talked about the larger ideas, but I would say this, like, lean into the things you enjoy. So if you enjoy yoga or trail runs or surfing, lean into that and let that be the foundation. But then be thoughtful about what qualities of physical stimulation are missing in those things. So like if you're doing a lot of yoga and surfing, for example, like with yoga, you're getting a lot of flexibility, breath work, stuff like that, but you're not really getting a strength component. So if yoga is the foundation because you love it, then intentionally add some structured strength training so that now you have a more well-rounded program. And then maybe add some type of like cardiovascular component to it, which could be something playful, or it could be, a jog or riding a bike or something like that. Same thing with like surfing. Okay, if you're surfing a lot, you're spending a lot of time outside, that's awesome. you're getting a lot of like paddling and, kind of sprint intervals and cardiovascular stuff, some good balance work. Like, okay, we'll add a strength component to that. If on the other hand, you're someone who really likes to be in the gym and likes to lift heavy things, awesome. That's great. Now let's add some type of tissue and mobility routine and some type of cardiovascular exercise that could be as simple as, going for walks or doing zone 2 cardio, or it could be getting into some type of, recreational activity that you enjoy that, allows for some kind of more well-rounded movement routine. So, build on the foundation of what you love, but then analyze where the blind spots are in the recreational activity that you love and fill those in with something more structured. And that's where, like, if you don't know, then some coaching can be helpful. The other thing I would say for people is the best way to create a shift in your health and energy and, the way that you look is to have a really dialed in morning routine. And, if you have a really dialed in morning routine, then that's kind of like the domino that creates this great chain reaction through the rest of the day that is going to, really help you leverage better decisions throughout the rest of the day. And it doesn't have to be this like super long and extensive plan, but if you can, wake up early, get yourself hydrated, get some exposure to cold, and get some movement in, like that, you can do all those things in 30 minutes or less. And if there are other things you want to add, like journaling or meditation, like those things are great. But if your morning is packed and busy, then leverage the things that actually create this like hormonal optimization. And then you have like an incredible morning routine. And then that can kind of be the launching pad for the rest of the day. So, that would be like probably some of the best practical advice I could give somebody.
I love it. That's awesome, man. A good morning. I mean, I was just thinking of my morning routine now. So I'm like, okay, yeah.
Yeah. Another
like
one
that.
would also be like, know yourself. Like I am super creative and inspired first thing in the morning. So for me, I want to get to work and things that I'm passionate about as quickly as possible, because there's this like window of time where like, this is the best I'm going to get of myself in the morning. So like, I want to get through that morning routine that stimulates all that and then get right into work. But if you're someone who is better working in the evening or, whatever it may be, like, then know yourself. And like, it's okay to like, don't do it exactly the same way I do it. If you are on a little different rhythm, you can still integrate all the different frameworks and routines, but you just have to like play with how it harmonizes with you the best.
Yeah. I mean, that's really cool, man. That's really cool. And that's the kind of work you do in your coaching then. You help people to kind of like dial into their personal.
Yeah, it's like I start with like, here are all the frameworks that we ultimately want to build your life around. But then through the course of the work that we do together, let's figure out how we can mold it to dial it in best for you and, kind of your unique life. Because there's not like a one. Yeah, there's not like a sequential like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 that's the same for everybody. There's all the things that we need to integrate, but where and how we integrate them, and to some degree in what order, can be a little bit different. So it's just about like allowing someone to dial that in, and part of that is introducing habits and then having someone experiment with it for a couple weeks. Because struggling with trying to implement something is part of the process of learning it. Just like in any skill, like, whether you're trying to shoot a basketball or play the piano, you have to struggle through not being great at it to become great at it. And it's the same thing for, a wellness routine.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, again, thanks so much for being here, man. I hope people got a lot out of that. I certainly did, and really appreciate the work you're doing. We'll get the word out for you, and keep on keeping on, man.
I will. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure talking. Appreciate you.
Yeah, awesome.